Welcome back to another episode of Storybound. I appreciate you being here. On Storybound, we talk about the intersection of mental health, neurodivergent, and creativity. And on today's episode, we have Reese Sherron on. And I'm very excited to talk to her because we do have something in common. We both have ADHD. And so I'm curious to see how similar we are, but how different we are because there can be a lot of overlaps. And Reese, if you could jump in and just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am Reese Sherron. I am the author of The Fate of Elysian, The Sounds of Sion, and The Fate of Emprian, which everything is getting a rebrand right now. So I'm super excited for my followers to see that on TikTok and everything. I also have a children's book that I am reworking on as well. I'm from Texas, but my husband has been active duty military for 10 years, and we have moved from St. Louis to Alaska and now in North Carolina. So we are everywhere, and I am just ready to settle down and be able to just write and finally focus on everything.
That's exciting. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
So I want to dig into a little bit into your writing. So you said you have a children's book, and I've seen. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding this right.
Yes.
I've seen you post about a children's book
Mhm.
on TikTok about dragons. Is
Yeah.
this the book you are referencing?
Yeah, it's like way back there. It's
It's
called
super cute.
it's called The Dragon Went Dreams. And it actually is a little bit about like me as a child. I felt like I was really that outcast of a person. I never fit in with anybody. I always was like that creative person. I would write, I would draw, and I don't know, I just always felt different. That's what the book is about. And it's like overcoming it and just being able to embrace your uniqueness and really just sharing it and just meeting people. And it's a really cute book. I just have to reformat it. There were some formatting issues, and it's my first time ever doing a children's book. So it's like a whole different ball
Yeah.
game than like fantasy and dystopian and stuff like that. So I loved my illustrator and everything. She did a fabulous job. It's just the format that I have to redo everything. But yeah, so I'm hoping that'll come out again by December to get that all done.
Looks really cute, and like the illustrations are really beautiful, and I feel like appropriate for the age range and stuff that you're trying to shoot for. Congratulations on that. That's very exciting. And then I want to dive into, you mentioned two others. Are they you mentioned two other books.
Yeah,
So are they related, or are they unrelated, or are they a series? What's going on with that?
it's a lot. Okay. So I'm thankful for my readers because they have just been there with me through this whole journey. So The Fate of Elysian was book one of my trilogy. This whole series is like the dystopian vibe of my book. So we have
Okay.
The Fate of Elysian was book one, then Sounds of Sion was like a little novella, and
Okay.
Fate of Emprian was book two. So if you read the book, you would understand it, but they're going to be like my bonus books now. So those are actually getting removed, re-edited just to take out just like the little bit of those grammar errors and the formatting. I just want it to look more professional, even though I'm an indie
Yeah.
author. So I'm trying to make them look like they were like maybe from a publisher or something. So
Yeah.
those are gonna be like the bonus books now. So those are off of the shelf. And then I'm working on the Trials of the Elysian, which is truth of what those books were, if that
Books are all about.
so I'm really into the mind, which obviously I'm sure you are because I have ADHD. And you said
Mhm.
had OCD, which I do as well. My therapist has diagnosed me. Makes sense. I really like the mind. I think the mind is so interesting. And so in these books, she's actually in a coma and it's all her dream world. So the guy
Mm.
actually is so like obsessive with her that he puts her in a coma and re-alters her memories and
Oh,
erases
wow.
her memories to where all that she can remember is him. So when she wakes up, it's like this whole thing, right? So the Trials of the Elysian is the truth. So it introduces all these new characters, the truth of the city, the trials of the games, and everything. So super excited about it. It's I guess you can say a trilogy. There'll be book one, book two, book three.
Book
And
3.
then those two other books will be like the bonus books for it. Like you don't have to read it, but they're really interesting to see like the different concepts of everything.
Okay, okay. I was trying
Uh,
to understand, like, all the different connections because you
yeah.
seem like you have a lot going on in terms of the different things that you're writing. It's definitely nice to hear it distilled down from you firsthand just because I've only seen what I've seen on TikTok. So just trying to get a better understanding is all. So can you tell me a little bit about, so you're doing all these things. How does that do you feel like all these things you're doing all these things because of, like, your neurodivergent? Do you feel like you have your hand? Because I feel like for me, like, I have this podcast, I have a Substack, I have a book I'm currently querying, I'm writing a novella, like, I have short stories in my head that, like, I'm working towards. Do you feel like your it has to be, like, I this is probably a dumb question, but do you feel like your creative journey is impacted by your neurodivergence? Do you feel like it's impacting your choices and, like, what you're choosing to do with your books?
100%. Like, I could have left these alone and could have been like, whatever type thing. But I just like really have been just so obsessed with the story. I first tried to write this in high school and it has just followed me like as I've gotten
That's so
older.
cool.
Yeah. So while I'm working on the Trials of the Elysian, I'm currently writing it, rebranding it, all that stuff. Nobody has read that book, so I'm super excited about it. And then while I'm doing that, the Fate of Elysian and the Fate of Emprian are getting redone by me as well. So I'm going
Wow, you have a lot on your plate.
yes.
It's like a lot.
Yeah. But while I'm doing that, I'm also in my mind, which I'm sure you do it, in my mind, writing my romantasy in my head because there's a whole other
Yeah.
series that I'm working on too. And I'm like, there's just so much being pulled, but I'm the type of person where I feel like I thrive off of being busy and staying busy. And when I am not, I feel like I'm almost failing in a way, if that makes sense.
I
So, do you get what
there.
I'm saying? And then I feel like
I do.
I feel like I get in, like,
It's so
depression state too, so if I'm not busy, I'm like, "Okay, so I need to do something because I'm failing," and so yeah, so
I literally was just telling my boyfriend this afternoon, like, I was grumpy this afternoon, and he was like, "I was really excited because he works an odd schedule. He works Sunday through Thursday. He was like, "I was really excited to come home and be with you this afternoon, but you seem grumpy." I was like, I am grumpy, actually." Like, I feel like I had all this morning time, but all I got accomplished was, like, I took a shower, I posted on TikTok because the social media takes so much freaking time, and I
I
hate how
know.
much time it takes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I prepped dinner and I put on a load of laundry and I was like, it's 4 o'clock and I haven't gotten any writing done. Like I haven't gotten anything done that I've wanted to do. It's just been like house stuff, right? And now that the day is almost gone, I don't feel like writing. I don't feel like writing. I feel so much guilt over not writing. It's like if I'm not doing the thing, I feel really crappy about it. And I know that's not like a good mindset to
Yeah.
be in at all. It's a very extreme personality. I
Yes.
do think it is a characteristic of neurodivergence in some way, especially like ADHD and OCD. Because I know for me, I get stuck in these like loops and I use that language with my boyfriend when I am stuck in a loop. I literally say, I'm stuck in a loop. Like I can't stop thinking about this thing and it will literally make me neurotic. And he's like, how do we close the loop?
Almost
And that's
live, almost in a way, until, like, you can do it or get it done.
exactly.
It's like this constant thing, like, you'll be driving and you're thinking of it. You'll be at Target and you're thinking of it. No matter
Exactly.
you're thinking of it. When my husband's talking to me, but I'm thinking of it. And he's,
It's
"Hey,
like
I'm
you have 2
yeah,
brains.
yes." It's like half and half. It's I think it's a blessing and a curse at the same
It is.
time because I feel like
It
that's what makes maybe us so special when it comes to being like creatives. Because I feel like a lot of creatives thrive off of this, and I feel like this kind of keeps us driven to continue to do it because like we want it so bad and we're always thinking of it, so we always are going to end up doing it. But then I feel like sometimes in the real world, I'm like almost in a phase, like not a phase, like a fog, if that makes sense.
I think comparatively, right, to other people, maybe it seems like we're in a fog because we're preoccupied almost because we're preoccupied with that loop. We're preoccupied of constantly thinking of the next creative endeavor, if that makes sense. So I do think it makes us I almost see absent-minded is the best way, but a little disconnected because we're in our head so much. And I definitely have a challenge with that. It makes it difficult for me to make friends and connect with people because I am in my head so much. But yeah, I definitely feel you on that. I do think it makes it special. I do think it makes us see things differently with our creativity. I do think it impacts the overall way that we walk through the world. It's it's unique.
It is. It's hard and unique at the same time.
It is. It definitely is. Especially like for me, the OCD. combined with the ADHD. I know you have it too. So I can't focus sometimes, but the OCD is like looping. I don't
Yes.
know if you have that.
Yes.
And so you get like this obsessive thought, like, I need to work on, I don't know, maybe for you, it's your little kid's book. You're like, I really need to work on this. I really need to work on this. I really need to work on this. But it's like you sit down to do it and you're like pulled
Oh
away
gosh, yeah. All the
and you're
time.
like pulled away and pulled away. It's like
All
social media or a different idea or a different idea, but you're like, I need to do this. And the thought is looping.
I sometimes have to take my phone and put it away, like, just somewhere just
Do
far
you
away.
do that really?
Yeah, because even, like, right now, like, it's vibrating and, like, my brain keeps, like, doing it because I don't know, I'm the type of person where if I don't check it now or if I don't read it now, I'm never gonna read it. I
I get
don't
that.
know why, and I'm just like and then while I'm writing, if I'm writing, then that's going off. I get so distracted, and then I'm like, "Oh, crap," and then I'm in this, like, pause. I'm like, where was I?" You almost in a way type thing. It's a mess.
And it's hard to get back into it, right? Once you
Yes.
lose that focus, it's really hard to get back into it, that like
Mhm.
task switching. And I feel you on that. Cause like for me, I recently got an Apple Watch to like help with my health and my fitness to make sure that I'm like moving as much as I need to be moving. And every notification comes through and it's on my wrist and it's like vibrating and like dinging. And so when I've sat down to write recently, like I've had to start taking this thing off because I'll take the phone and I don't necessarily put it away, but I'll put it like
Higher.
a stretch away from me. And if it's a stretch away, it's much easier to ignore than if it's like on my lap or right next to me or something like that. And I have to do the same thing with this because if not, the constant dinging will drive me crazy because it's like, I can't focus
Yes.
at all. And it's quite challenging.
Mhm.
So let's jump into that. Let's jump into like challenges. Obviously, we're talking a little bit about challenges, but like for you personally, what are some of the biggest challenges? You're writing all of these books. So
Yeah.
is the challenge like staying focused? Is the challenge like staying on one idea? What is the challenge?
Oh,
Especially you have children, like, right? You're a mother.
yes. My husband's been gone for a year. Maybe people who watch this don't realize that, but my husband just came home. He's been gone for a year, so it's been a huge help, and now it's just a whole other adjustment, right? Because we
Yeah.
get this routine, me and the kids, and so now it's this whole other adjustment with him coming in. With kids, obviously, it is very hard to write during the day and be able to sit down and quiet. Like I have my headphones, the noise cancellation
Mhm,
headphones,
me
because like I
too.
really have to really dive in and focus, or I'll have some light instrumental music in the background. But during the day, we're so busy, me and the kids, like it's constant, like with the food and interacting with them. And I'm the type of person, I really don't like them on technology all day long. So I'm trying to like really be with them, but then it's 100 degrees outside. So it's just like all this stuff. And so by the end of the day, like you said, you get into bed and you're wiped, right? Like you're just exhausted. And it's hard to write after such a long day,
Yeah.
being so busy, and then your brain is tired, right? But I also feel like being a mom, I'm still thinking of my book stuff too. Even if I'm doing something with them, I'm still thinking. And if something pops up, I'll pull out my phone and kind of write the notes down. I don't know if you do that.
I
Sometimes
do.
when I'm driving, I'll daydream and I'm like, oh crap, wait a minute, what just happened? I'm on the highway. Am I okay? Because I just went into a whole nother.
You like completely zone out. Like you're like,
Yeah.
where have I been? You're
Oh,
like
for
looking
sure. Like, "Oh, crap, I thought I was, like, in a castle, but nope, I'm down the highway," and so I have to pull out my phone, and I'm, like, talking in my phone, like, everything that I just thought of in my head, or I'll forget it. Like, I'll lose it, and I
it'll
have a
be
favorite
gone.
too, I
Yeah.
don't know if you ever do that, but write down things, and if I
No,
visualize.
I am. I'm not a whiteboard girl. I don't have one up, but I am a notebook girl. And I
I
will
just
just show you an example of
write
this.
it
Like
down.
my notebooks are an utter mess. They literally make no sense. Like I
And
have
so
doodles on and lists and like lines connected to each other. Like I'm constantly writing stuff down. Like again, like doodles and lines and like all kinds of stuff. Like this goes here and this goes
uh-huh.
there.
It might not make sense to anybody else because my husband does the same thing. He's none of this makes sense. I'm like, but it makes sense to me because
And that's all that matters.
I know where everything is. If he moves something in the house, and I'm like, where is it? I'm like, where'd you put it?
I do the same
Oh, I
thing.
moved it over here. I'm like, why? He goes in the. And I was like, no, it wasn't. You don't touch it. This is where it does.
This is where it belongs. I do the same thing, the exact same thing. I've gotten to the point where like I've stopped asking like my partner, like, why isn't this where it belongs? I've just started picking up and moving it back
Not gonna
because it's not worth the
golly, for real. So yeah, it's
fight.
and then I will say staying on topic for sure. Just like how you were saying with so much that is going on in my mind, it's really hard. I have to reread a chapter before going into another chapter just so I can switch my brain into I'm in the Trials of Elysian. I'm not in my romantasy book, not working on the children's book. Like this is the chapter, this is the book I'm going into. And then I have to go, which obviously makes my process slower
Slower.
than some authors because I do have to reread the chapter I just did. And then I make some changes, obviously, because when you reread
Because you're
it,
like editing along the way. And
and a lot of people say, don't do it. No, don't do it. You can't do it like that. My brain, I think it's that OCD almost in a way in it. I can't move on unless I feel like that chapter is good enough to move on, if that makes
like it's all buttoned up and in a nice place.
Yes. Yeah. I have to make sure the flow is right. I have to make sure I don't know that I'm not repeating things sometimes, editing as I go. But I feel like my brain is so fresh though from that chapter that I already know what's happening and that I can move on. Because if I take a break from writing and I don't read that chapter, I'm like, I feel like I can't get in that like momentum for it to flow nicely. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I think it does make sense. I used to
Huh.
be honestly the exact same way. My first book, I was the same way. I would go back and I would read the last chapter I wrote before moving into the next chapter. This last book, I was that way up until the end. And
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what happened with my writing process, but something changed at the end of my writing process where I went from writing like 500, 1,000 words in a writing session, and I'm talking about, like, in a 2, 3-hour writing session because
Yeah.
I get so
Yeah.
distracted by, like, the things around me. It's really hard to get in any fair amount of words.
Mhm.
Um, but towards the end of my second book, I was sitting down and getting 2, 3,000 words in the same
Yeah.
time frame,
Yeah.
and I stopped pretty much caring. Like, I was like, I had to throw my fucks out the window, and I had to be like, 'cause I guess my obsession, like the OCD, it changed from, like, the story being, like, flowing to the story being done. And so it was like the obsession changed to, like, just get the words down, like, just get the words down. But now I'm, like, rewriting a novella, and I'm finding myself stuck again where you're at, where I'm, like, having to reread what I just did, and I'm finding getting the words down. So I feel like for me, it kind of changes where I'm at in the book because the same thing happened in my first book. At the end of my first book, it was like those last like 20,000 words, like I stopped caring and I was just like, just get it done. It was like I could see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I know how it is, and I think that's, like, probably an ADHD, like, too, where it's almost done, so you're just, like almost like it's like a like, obsessive yeah, like an
Yes,
obsessive
it's like a race. It's like a race to the end, a
we're
hyperfixation.
we're almost there, like, we're almost getting it done, it's almost like a
Yeah.
reward, like, we've worked so
And
hard
that's
today.
exactly what it is. It's a reward. It's a dopamine hit. It's
Yes,
that dopamine hit.
close, and then you get it done, and you're like, "Oh, praise Jesus, there we go, thank you."
Yep.
I'm like,
But
"Get ahead in it now."
yeah, but of course, because I did that at the end, I ended up deleting full-blown chapters because they didn't make any sense.
What just happened? What just went wrong?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have challenges
Yeah.
sitting down and writing, but I'm curious, like, how you handle, because I'm a mom too, and I also work full time, and so I definitely struggle with this, like, it's been a day.
Yes.
I've taken care of the kids. I've gone to work and now it's summertime and I work remotely. So like for me, it's I have a little bit of freedom where I can go take the kids to the pool at lunch and I can go take
Yeah.
the kids to the pool after work and I can do this different stuff with them, but it's still like a full day with like feeding them and doing stuff with them on top of work. And I'm wiped at the end of the day. Do you push yourself through those days when you are just because for me, there are days when, like, literally nothing sounds good. Like, at the end of the day, it's like social media sounds terrible.
Yep.
Like, movies sound terrible. TV sounds terrible. Video games sound terrible. Reading sounds terrible. Writing, it all just, and I just want to rot. Like, I just want to stare at the ceiling and rot. Do you have days like that?
Oh, yeah, like, I'll be in bed and I'll just be, like, almost zoned out, and even if my kids are, like, running and my husband's, like, doing something, I'm just, like, staring because I think you just get so and I think I've read up about it with ADHD, like, we get these, like, almost like where the therapists think it's a depression, but it's actually
Mhm.
where you're just, like, it's your ADHD and you just have been on such a high and a go-go that whenever we crash really hard. So we kinda go
Yeah.
through this ups, and instead of going middle and then down, we just go down. And so I think when that happens, I think it's just because we have worked so much and that we like on overdrive. But I've done it a lot. And if I'm like that, like I won't push myself to write. If I'm just like completely
So you
wide,
take the time to
I
rest.
take the time to rest. Like I won't even be on social media, which my followers have seen me go really good and then drop, go really good and then
I'm the
drop.
same.
It's that ADHD crash. So you just crash. And so I've really have tried to recycle some videos now. So if I'm in that crash moment, I'm just recycling videos on TikToks and Instagram. I'm trying to get out. So I'm not like going up and down
Up
with
and down, up and
social
down.
media with
And
my
that's so terrible with the
it,
algorithm.
it
Especially, like, when we're talking about TikTok.
yeah, oh gosh, TikTok.
Like, you take 2 days off and, like, you post a video and TikTok's, "Oh, they're only gonna show your video to 80 people." I just wanna throw my phone on.
Yeah, it's but they want you to be like glued to the phone.
Yeah, they
I
do.
I can't be because and I'm sure you feel this way, like being a mom, I want to be present with them, but and then I have to write and I have to do that. I can't be like on TikTok handwriting at the same time because then if I go on TikTok, I'm gonna start scrolling for hours.
Yeah, I get stuck in that scroll too. I
Yes.
absolutely do, and, like, my partner will catch me, and he'll be like, "Babe, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh,
Oh, right.
I went to go look this thing up, and then I went to TikTok, and I got stuck."
Yep.
And
And
he's like, "Babe, go do the thing." I'm like, "Okay, sorry."
I'll get to it. Yes, it's hard. It is really
It
hard.
is.
And
So
so
what about those in between days though? If
yeah,
you're not feeling like totally burnout from the ADHD and like the mind racing 24/7, and it's just like a day where you're like just generally tired. Like you've been with the kids all day long, you've done all the cooking, you've done all the cleaning,
yeah.
you've done all the social media posting, and now it's time to sit down and write. You force yourself,
I'll try and dig into it a little bit. And then I'll notice that if my brain starts like, you know how it's almost like, okay, we're going. Like
click.
I'll start going. But if I'm like really like zoning out and starting to really lose focus, and I'm like, okay, tonight is just the night because I know if I try and force this, I'm gonna reread it. And it's just what did I even just waste my time doing? Because none of this even makes sense. But there's sometimes where I have to just pull out my computer and sit down and just try and type because I feel like if I do that, sometimes I'll just get in that rhythm that like my brain
Yeah.
going and it'll start flowing. But some nights are just awful and it just
Yeah.
it doesn't work. And then just it's a whole thing. And then you
Yeah, I know.
up where I'm like, I suck as an author. So why am I even
No, you don't. Don't.
working on
I
it?
know that.
Like you're doing why am I even doing this?
I know it's so hard. I get stuck in I feel like writing I have 2 points here. So I'm gonna try to, like my ADHD is going really hard to hold
No,
on
no,
to both points, so I'm gonna
no.
try to hold on to both points.
Okay.
So, number 1, I do the same, where it's like most nights, even if I don't feel like writing, like I'm tired, I do the same. I open up the computer and I'll poke at it. I'm like, "Bing, yeah, are we gonna get along?"
Yeah.
And some nights we are, and it's like the words flow. It's as soon as I sit down and I type the first 2, 300 words. Oh, it's flowing and it goes. And then other nights I'm so distracted because I'm so tired and I can't focus. And so I give myself like 45 minutes, an hour. Then I'm like, okay, I'm throwing my hands up. I'm going to go do something else. Like I'm going to go watch TV. I'm going to go play video games, play on my little Switch, like whatever. Or I'm going to go read a book because some nights it's just not possible. But I do the same. So I typically force myself to sit down to write because I feel like I have so much that I want to do. And it's if I'm not actively working on it, like I hold myself to this like invisible standard of
Yeah.
5 to 7 days a week, I want to be working on my writing. Like weekends are for the most part, like I wouldn't say off limits, but I get a lot less work done on Saturdays and Sundays because those are days where everyone's off work.
Mhm.
You have errands to run, everyone's out of school, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like Monday through Friday are like after work. That's
Work
when I'm
day.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where I'm plugged in. So there's that. I definitely have that feeling. And see, I lost number 2. I knew I was gonna lose number 2. I
And what
cannot
think, use the brain. Come on, brain.
No,
Or
I
or
cannot hold a second thought for the life of me. Thank
no.
you,
So I'm
ADHD.
like,
I can't.
whenever I'm like talking here, I'm like, okay, I'm really trying to pay attention to what I'm talking about. And I'm like, this is what I want to say. And then I've already noticed that I'm like already like going off topic. And I'm like, okay, let me pull this really.
That is exactly why I said, I was like, if we get on tangents, it's fine. It's absolutely fine because this
So
is a podcast about neurodivergence and
yeah.
mental health. So
Oh, it's
the
so
people listening to this know what this is.
it's so bad. I do with my husband too all the time. And he's, weren't we just talking about something else? I'm like, I don't even know. What were we even talking? I don't even know what we were talking
Mine,
about.
mine utterly hates Rob. Like, hey, I'll be like, hey, babe. And he'll be like, what? And I'll be like, I'll just go silent.
You're like, I forgot.
And he's going to be like, babe. And I'll be like, I forgot. Like in the span of 2
I don't know. You're like, I actually don't know what just happened. I just knew I needed to say, hey, babe.
It's like my brain like short circuited.
It's a good, okay, we're good now. Just wanted to make sure we're all good. That's
It's
fun.
definitely tough. It's
It
definitely tough. But
is.
and that happens sometimes with writing too, right? That happens with writing. It's like you'll have I feel like that's why I use the phone a lot. I know you're saying you do that. Are you using like your notes app? Is there a
Yeah.
specific app that you're using? Because I started with notes for Apple. That's what I was using on mine. And then I've recently switched to Notion. So is there like a specific
Nope.
app you're using? Notion, yeah. It's a browser
No, but it's
app. It's
really just
also
like, well, like it just like look at you and but I'll type it and I'm like, okay, we'll add I have the like my other like my romantasy one because I'll just drive and like stuff comes up or like at night. I don't know if you're like this, but like I'm a nighttime person. So while I'm laying in bed, like I'm like playing scenes and it's something will just click and I'm like, I have to write this down because in the morning I'm gonna forget it. And I'm sure
yeah,
me
you will.
rereading these notes, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, these are good because I already forgot about them. So like, and that's why I have white notes and never or whiteboard things. I have to have it. I have to.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it because I definitely have a lot of ideas just like you,
Yes.
but they come and go
Oh yeah.
just as quick as they go, just as quick as they come.
They come. Just one thing that comes into your mind, like at that one time. It's not like
Yep.
a lot. It's just like, here's the one thing you have to write it down. And I noticed that when I read my story, like new ideas come up where I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
that could have been like, they call them like, what is it? The little Easter eggs or something like that. I'm like,
Yeah, you're like you drop those for yourself.
that could be a little Easter egg for what is to come and stuff like that. I have to reread it, even though it makes my process a lot longer.
Stress it. I wouldn't stress it.
And it works for me, unfortunately. And I wish it didn't. Like sometimes I'm jealous of those authors who can just like
I get it.
pump them out. You know what I mean? Like they could just
Mhm.
go. And I'm like, I'm so jealous. I want to be that. That's a dream. That's like a dream to me to be able to do that. But like our minds, it literally physically cannot. They
I
can't.
know. And I see this. This is what I was wondering if we would have any overlap, if we would be more similar than different, because ADHD is so, there's two different types of ADHD, right? That there's the hyperactivity and there's the inattentive, and you can have one or the other or a combination of both. So everyone's a little bit different when it comes to ADHD. And I know for me, I've had to actually unfollow, like to
Oh,
protect my mental health, not because there's nothing wrong with them, but
no.
to protect my mental health so that I am not stealing my joy by doing comparisons. I've had to unfollow other authors who like I respect, but then I'm seeing them pump out like 10K a day. And
Yes.
that gets me stuck in this like comparison, like I suck, like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like tearing into myself. So I've had to like actually unfollow people who are getting these massive word counts, not because anything's wrong with them, but because something's wrong with me. But I have to protect my peace and I have to get
No, I
out of
get
that comparison
mhm.
trap.
I 100% I done it before, and then I've sometimes have followed them back to, oh, maybe I'm in like a better like mind space. So like I'll follow them back because they're like our friends. Like I'm a
Mhm.
huge, I'm like that hype girl. Like I feel like I hype everybody out. You know, people don't know who I am, but I'm like, I'm still your hype girl. Like I will be here. But sometimes I feel like I can get super depressed if I do see those things because I so badly want to be that. And I so badly want to be like successful with my writing and really have people read like my stories. I think every author wants that. That's why we write because we just love these stories and love these ideas and we just want people to read them. I think that's that we just want to share it. And so I feel like it's so hard sometimes to see other authors be able to pump out like 6 books a year, and you're just like,
That's crazy to me.
I am working on one, and it's been like a year when I'm like, I'm trying so hard. And it's just in with kids and our brain. And you said you work full time. I'm about to have to start working to get a job. I mean, my husband just got out of the military, so it's gonna be a huge adjustment.
The big adjustment.
And
I've
it
been there.
and I just want to be home and writing. Like that's all I want to
Yeah.
do. But like financially just can't. And I'm hoping one day I will be able to, but I know it's going to be a struggle being able to go to work and then come home,
Yep.
hopefully still have the energy to write. So it's a
Yeah.
lot.
It is a lot. It absolutely is a lot. And it's hard when you have all these different factors in your life that maybe other authors don't have that's allowing them to get these like really high word counts that we're unable to. I mean, that's a big reason why we're having these discussions about neurodivergence and creativity because our brains do work differently. And that's the thing is there are people who are ADHD who can like pound out 10,000 words in a sitting because they are so hyper focused, right? That hyper focus like takes control. I have yet to be possessed like that, but I am waiting for the day.
One day. I feel, and I'm wondering if you're like this. We get that hyper obsessive where we try and do it, right? And like, but we're so dedicated to do it. And then if something else almost like triggers us, do you get mad?
Ragey.
Yes, I get so angry because I'm so in the zone. And when somebody tries to pull me away from that, like, I'm just, what are you doing?
Mhm.
I have to do this. And now you just pulled me out of my focus. And now I'm completely distracted. So now I'm upset because now I don't think I'm going to be able to get back into it.
Back into it. I
Yeah.
totally get that. It's that task
Ugh.
switching is really hard. And I
So
think
hard.
that's like another thing is we have things on our plate as mothers with children and having partners. And because I don't want to like, I don't want to point people out, but I have the people I've talked about who have these 10K words, like mo- the ones that I have in my brain don't have children, right? They don't have children or they're single. And so they don't have these distractions. And so when you're sitting and you're hyper focusing like that, for me, I do get very angry if someone starts talking to me. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Don't you see me working right now?
I'm doing this. Yeah. Yeah. And it can be hard to get back into it. So I get it. I totally get it. But we have things in our lives. And I feel like we have to acknowledge that too. Like we
Yeah.
have to give ourselves grace. Like we're
Grace.
in a
Yes.
season in our life. We made choices to be mothers. And so we made this choice where we're going to have to sacrifice like
Mhm.
time and energy for having children. And so we have to recognize that and be like, other people didn't make that choice and that's their choice. And we have to respect that. But again, it's hard because you can totally get stuck in that
Yeah.
comparison
Oh,
trap.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we mean to either.
Never.
I
Oh,
naturally comes because I'm sure you're the same way. Like I love being a mom. Like
yeah.
I love them. And but it's like how to balance almost in a way. Like I'm awful at balancing. And that's one of like my worst traits, I think, ever is just time management and balance.
Yeah.
Because
That's ADHD.
yeah,
Like time management
it's
is
like
like
you're like, okay,
not a
yeah.
strong suit.
You're like, okay, I'm not spending enough time with my kids. So then you spend so much time with your kids, and then you're like,
And then you're like, I'm not spending enough time on my writing.
yes. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I just spent all day and it's 9 o'clock at night. I haven't even touched my book. I haven't even been on TikTok. I haven't even been on Instagram. I need to make graphics for my Instagram. I need to highlight my hook lines to make these graphics. Like I need to go on TikTok and Instagram to start commenting and following people so I can get boosts. It's like, girl,
I
how
know. It's
do
a
we
lot.
have time? It's
There's
hard.
not.
Like it's so hard. And then you get stressed and then you get tired and then you get aggravated and irritated. And it's so overwhelming.
It is. It is. I've had to make peace with like
Yeah.
with and it's taken me a while to get here, but I've had to make peace with making like little progress. Again, as long as I'm working on my writing in some way most days of the week, I've had to learn to make peace with that. And not just make peace with it, but be proud of myself. You know
100%.
what I mean? Because we do have a lot on our plates. And so no, we may not be getting 10K days, but if I sit down and I write 1,000 words and I've posted to TikTok and I've posted on Threads and I've posted on Instagram, like I've done all the social media to help gain an audience for my books. And I've also worked towards my dream of getting books out there. So, like, I've done all of the things, maybe not in the amount that I would like, but I've done the things. And so I have to, and I feel like we suck at that. Like, we suck at giving ourselves
Yes.
like the acknowledgement, like, you're working
You know
hard at this.
what?
Like, you're doing the thing. Give yourself a damn pat on the back already.
I feel like we're really hard on ourselves. Like
Yeah.
I and like I said, we don't mean to. It just like our brain just truly is you're just not doing enough. Like you're not
And it's so untrue. It's a lie.
yeah, they're like you should actually be doing more. Like you need
Shut up, brain.
it was so funny. So today Cody and I, my husband, we went to the bookstore and I got the book When the Moon Hatched. And that book's like a
Mm.
beast, right?
It looks really good. I have not tried it yet, but I want to
Well,
read it.
yeah, so my friend was like, "Don't read it now because it is really, like, confusing and stuff, especially since I'm writing and everything." So I'll get to it, but when we were at I almost lost my train of thought, I just pulled myself in. When we were at the bookstore, I was, like, looking around and it was, like, art, like, learning how to draw and stuff like that, and I'm looking at my husband and I'm like, "I wonder if they have things that I can learn how to do my own illustrations for, like, character arts and stuff." I so
You know what?
shocked, and he looks at me and goes, "Probably," and I was like, "Sh."
I literally, like 2 months ago, I was like telling my boyfriend, I was like, babe, I think I need an iPad.
Yeah,
I
they
need
are t
Procreate. I could do this. I could figure out how to draw my own character because you can there's websites out there with figure drawings that you
yeah,
can use
yeah,
for free. I could just like try this.
okay.
I'd like being super delulu over here. I could totally do my own character illustration.
Yeah, because 'cause they're expensive. Because I mean, like,
Yeah.
they're talented, so should price it the way they wanna price it, but sometimes for indie authors,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. You said, "Yeah, I can do this," and I already have an iPad, okay? So I have tried this
I used
before.
to have one. I used to have one and then my kid broke it.
Of
So that's
course.
why I was like, I need another
Well,
one. And I had Procreate.
yes, me too, yeah, and I've tried it. I've tried doing it wasn't good, and I don't know why my brain thought that I could try
You can do it.
again.
And this is I feel like total ADHD like delusion, but I feel like you can do it. I feel like anything that like we want to
Set our
do
mind.
because we are obsessive, we
Yes.
can do. We may not be great at it at first, but it's just like writing. Right? Like how long have you been writing, Reese?
Me so I a lot of people don't know this, I started the Fate of Elysian when I was in middle school. So the Fate of Elysian, I had my first rough draft in middle school, which is crazy, and I just stopped it. I my dad actually still has my, like, writing, like,
Aw.
wrote it. And in high school, I did, UIL. I don't know if anybody really knows what UIL is, but it's like where we would go to competition with other schools. It's in Texas. So we'd have a debate team, a writing team, like all this.
Cool.
I was part of the writing team. And I went to state for creative writing. So with creating different stories and you had a certain time limit. And once that time goes off, your story's done type thing. So like super intense. And so I went to state for that. And then I went to college for like mass media communications, theater, film. So I'm like, love the craft. I love doing it. Then whenever I went into Alaska years ago, I started rewriting the Fate of Elysian. And
But how
surprisingly,
many years ago was that? Like how many years ago was Alaska?
Alaska was 2021?
Okay, so it's been
2021?
3 years since you had started rewriting that, right?
Yeah.
And now it's been 3 years, and now you're doing the Trials of Elysian, right?
Mhm.
How much have you grown as a writer from
Oh my
point A to point B, right? From, like, just
god.
those 3 years? Because obviously, we all have those, like, middle school years, like, I was writing, like, poems in my math notebooks. I was super creative, my English teachers were telling me, like, "Keep writing."
Yeah.
I think all writers had that
Oh,
in some way,
yeah.
but in our adult years, when we really start to take it serious is when we
Yeah.
really start to see that growth.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, now that you and this is back to my point of, like, delusion, right? Like, you
Yeah.
spent 3 years working on like, hardcore in your craft, like, obsessing about your craft, right? So, imagine if you did that same thing, but with drawing.
Oh, true. Don't give me that because I'm gonna be you're gonna see me on TikTok be like, "Here's my iPad, here's my Procreate."
I
Are
have notebooks full of paintings and drawings. I already paint and draw, so that's part of me is I
like,
don't know, I do paint, I do draw.
I
I could do this.
I'm like, "Maybe," but I'm like, "When do I have the time?" Because then I have to make time,
That's the point.
learn it.
That is it. The
Because like,
priorities.
with writing, it's just natural to us. Like that, I
Yes.
feel like that's a I personally and I get people go to college for it, and that's probably for the grammar and everything, but I feel like as a writer, it's just natural. I feel like you can't train to come up with these ideas, right? Like, you can't train to come
Naturally
up with
creative people.
yes, and that's just it flows for me, and it just
But I wanna break that down a little bit, and
oh,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanna break that down a little bit because
okay.
I feel like there's naturally creative people, right? There's
Mhm.
a group of us, we're naturally creative, but it's just a matter of what is our preferred form of expression. Because you
Yeah.
have people there that preferred form is drawing or
Okay.
singing or playing a
Yeah.
musical instrument or writing, because I feel like all creatives feel this way no matter what medium
Yeah.
they're choosing. I do, and I feel like you're born with this, like, electric creative energy no matter what medium calls to you.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think. I don't know, that's my hypothesis.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you completely, and I think that's why I think coming like, these stories that just come in my mind, I think it just, like, naturally come
Truly
I don't even
happen.
force it, like, it just I'm just like, "Oh, brain, there it is." Almost in a way with a story plot in my book, I'm just sitting on the couch. I think I was having one of those ADHD drops where I was just zoning out almost in a
Yeah.
way, but and it made me think of my main character's tattoos on his arm, and it
Mm.
clicked in my head as to what those tattoos are gonna mean for the trials, and I was like and it just came to me, like, literally within second, it just clicked in my mind, and I called one of my ARC readers, and I was like, "I have this thing, and I really wanna tell you about it." I was like, "But it's gonna be like a spoiler. Are you okay with it?" Because 'Cause I'm like, "I need to tell somebody." I'm like that type of person. And so I was telling her about it, and she was like, "How do you come up with this stuff?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I was literally just sitting in my bed. Just sitting in my bed, and it just light bulbs. It's the craziest thing.
I totally get that, 'cause that happens to me too. It's just it's like a thread, like,
Yeah.
there's, like, a thread, and I keep pulling
Mhm.
this thread, and, like, something, like, unravels and reveals itself to me, so I get that. But I wanna dive into that a little bit.
Right, okay.
Because I feel like the question that, like, where do you get inspiration from? That might be, like, a kind of a moot thing because we are grabbing inspiration from everywhere, I
Mm,
feel like, especially people who are, like, ADHD. We're, like, hyper vigilant and that we're taking in everything. So we're getting inspiration from everywhere. So it's hard to say, like,
yeah.
one place where we get it from, I feel like almost,
Yeah,
at least for me.
yeah.
So I think the real question is how do you keep your creative well full so that those ideas and that creativeness stays with you on a day-to-day basis? Because I don't know if you've ever dealt with it.
Mhm.
Like I've gone through a several month like dry period of like
Um,
where my creativity just poofed into the ether.
it burnt out. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. What helps me is music for sure. And it's a lot of the times music without lyrics. So I've noticed that if I listen to music, for some reason create I don't know, it's like a movie plays in my mind almost in a way
I
where
love
I've
that.
seen scenes and because my husband can't see things in his head, which I think is
That's
weird.
like a thing. Apparently half the world can't do that.
Right, and that really creeps me out because
It's weird, isn't it?
I can genuinely see her dress, see her walking down the stairs, like,
Yeah, me too.
literally visualize it. And I think the music helps me with that because it just I don't know, it almost, like, just clicks in my head. I
It
don't
like sets the scene.
yeah, it just oh, I don't know, like, even with Bridgerton, like, how they have, like, their music, like,
Second Bridgerton.
it just that's it, like, it just makes like, anything with that type of music, that's what I listen to when I write, like, that is that's it. That just hits something inside me, like, for sure. But also, and this is gonna sound really weird, but, like, my kids, they, like,
Oh, that's not
have
weird.
this imagination in them where they'll
Yeah.
say things or do things, and I'm like, "That's, like, a cool idea." I'm like, "Whoa, that was, like, dope." I'm like, "So, like, right it," you know?
You're like stealing their little kid ideas.
Sorry, yeah, I'm like, "Sorry, love you." So, my kid is obsessed with Pokemon, my son, and we were watching this movie. It was like a Pokemon movie one time, and there was these like huge stones, and it was the craziest thing ever. And I was like, just looking at it, and I'm not gonna say what it is because it's gonna be a book idea that's my romantasy book.
Yeah, that's
But
fine.
I
That's
looked,
fine. We won't dig into it.
but I looked at my husband and I was like, how crazy would it be if I wrote a book about this and I started just going off on it? And my husband just looked at me and said, you got all of that from looking at a stone. I said, "I did." He's, "Okay." And, like, it was the like, but it just hit, like, I saw it, and then I made a story out of it. It was, like, the craziest thing ever, so I just wrote it down, and I'm like, "Well, this is my next step."
I love that.
By watching something in Pokemon.
No, I absolutely love that. I feel like I recently had a short story idea come to me because I want to start, and this is like you were saying, like being very into the mind. I've primarily, to this point in my life, been a fantasy or like paranormal romance writer. And I have this really big fascination right now with like
Okay.
psychological thriller or horror, like
Ooh,
both.
mixed
And
vibe.
yeah, probably leaning more into the horror realm, honestly. I've gotten this, like, fascination around the mind and how, like, the mind can play tricks on us and all of this stuff, and I had a short story idea come from me. I had a whole freaking novel idea, like, just jump into my head one day if
Okay.
in this genre, and I was like, "I've never written anything psychological in my life," but now I'm like,
That's
that's the next thing."
yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like, how our mind is just, "Hey, here's a book idea." It's totally out of your genre, but here you
Yeah,
go, and
but
you're like, "Oh, okay."
all of my books have been that way. Like, none of my books have really necessarily been related. Like, my first
Yeah.
book was urban fantasy.
Okay.
Second book, paranormal romance. The
Wow.
third book, so, like, I have so many books. Third book I started writing was, like, Gaslamp. Do you know what Gaslamp is?
No.
Gaslamp is, like, Victorian era, but with, like, magic and guns, so it's, like, this
Oh,
mixture. It's,
that's
like,
cool.
steampunk.
That's really cool. I like that.
So it's a gas lamp. I have this gas lamp fantasy that I'm like 20K into. And
What
then I also started writing this super dark,
um,
spicy, like super spicy, like erotica retelling of the Ice Princess. So I don't want to say Frozen because it's like Disney, but there is
oh,
legit a
okay.
an old school fairy tale that Disney is based off of.
Oh,
That's like the Ice Queen. And it's a retelling of
cool.
that. So I have my none of my ideas are really connected
No,
in any way. And then I have this psychological thriller that's like out here in left field.
but it's the best. That is the best. This is not
We certainly never get bored.
no. Oh, gosh, no. Not at all. Whenever I was in Alaska, I this is why, like, my friends said I was, like, a high functioning ADHD person, but I've done photography, and then I did EMT as well, so I went through EMT
Wow.
training, did all that. Got bored not bored with that, but I got pregnant. And then I started learning how to do silversmithing, so now I know how to do silversmithing
Wow.
and stuff, and then I made hats on top of it, then I made earrings, and then I also did acting, so was on Netflix and Disney, and then now I'm trying to niche my brain into
Just writing.
just writing, but it's hard because 'cause you're like, "But I'm like, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this," and which I've done all of that. So now it's, "Okay, brain, I'm 30 years old. Let's try and work together, and let's just have maybe a little part-time job for the income for the family, and then let's just work on being an author." Let's just
I have a very similar background. Tried a lot of things in my 20s. Also did the photography thing.
you know
I had my own studio in my 20s until COVID hit
yeah.
and did wedding photography, all that stuff. And then it was like COVID hit and then my gear switched into writing because I couldn't have my studio open anymore and I needed a creative outlet. And so that's where I went. But I feel like I've really found a home with like writing. I
Yeah.
feel like photography was nice. I enjoyed it. It was definitely a nice way to express myself.
Yeah.
But for me personally, writing has been Trying to think.
It's almost calming.
It is calming, and it's like I can express my ideas in a way that I was never able to do with photography. It's like I could see things in my mind with photography, but I didn't know how to execute it. But when it comes to writing, it comes a lot easier.
I agree with that. And I don't get as overwhelmed, which sounds weird. I don't get as overwhelmed with writing as I did photography. Like I didn't like
Absolutely.
I loved going to meet my clients and photographing them, but having to edit them and sit at a computer just like editing, like it
That's the worst part about, like, doing any kind of wedding, because I picked up a wedding for a friend, who just got married in May, and it was like I spent 2 weeks of my life just, like, clicking through photos, and it was like
feels too much.
nails on a
And
chalkboard.
it is. And I don't know if it's the like the ADHD in us where we
It's
just
the monotony.
like it
Absolutely, it's the
more.
ADHD. It's so boring.
Well, it is because you're like seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And you're just like, I'm losing my mind. And I think
Yeah.
writing, it's new. Every single page that you're writing,
Oh,
it's new and it's
yeah.
exciting and you're building off of it. And it's, I don't know.
I
I
never thought about it that way, and I think you are absolutely right, Reese. It's every day is a new adventure,
Mhm.
so it never gets boring.
People we like new. We thrive
That
off.
novelty.
Yes. And I think with photography, I did it for 7+ years. Like I'm not in love with it anymore. And I don't want to
Same.
force myself to do it. Like I want to be happy. I was
I
like,
agree.
I'll have a part-time job. I don't care. I love selling engagement rings. Like it's beautiful, it's fun, but writing is where I want to be. Like,
You're doing a lot with it. You're absolutely doing a lot with it, and you can definitely tell that your heart is in it
yeah.
with everything that you're doing. You've done so much already. You've already published so much already, so you should really be proud of that. I do want to ask
Yeah.
because you are pretty active on TikTok. I know that ADHD makes you swing up and down. I have the same thing. Well, I won't post for a week or two, even sometimes. But in general, like community, do you find community to be important to you? So, do you have a writing group? Do you have people like other writers that you lean on, even if it's not like a specific writing group? Do you find community to be an important part of your journey?
I think it helps for sure. I feel like it can get pretty lonely though. Sometimes I don't know if you feel that way too.
I do
Um,
absolutely every day, and I have a writing
uh,
group, and I'm still lonely.
That's what I'm saying. Like I have a writer who I'm friends with from TikTok. I actually went to go stay at her house in Louisiana and stuff like that. But the good thing about it is I don't have to talk to her every day and we're still really good friends. And that's how my friendships have to be because I like I said, I look at a phone and I forget about it. And like
It's very common. It's
like
very common for people like us.
I like to call them and be able to be like, hey, how's everything going? It just picks up. Those are the friends that I like. And that's what I love about her because she's like, hey, do you want to do sprints? I'm like, perfect. So we'll do sprints together and stuff like that. I also have a little group chat that I just started, or I didn't start, but I just joined, which there are more readers in there. So I'm trying to get back into reading. So I have like my little bookshelf and stuff. But I noticed with me, I can't read and write at the same time. Like I have to do
I'm the
one or
same
the other.
way.
Yes, yes, I have to do one or the other. So I really want to read these books, but every time I try and open it, I close it because in my mind, I'm thinking of my story. So it's really,
Yeah.
really, really hard. I feel lonely sometimes because I feel like I'm not like a popular author. So sometimes I feel like nobody really wants to do anything with me. Does that make sense? I don't
Yeah.
like a
Sen.
party,
Yeah.
but I feel like I'm not like very well known like in the industry. And I don't write a lot of smut. I'm a huge like plot driven type
Yeah.
person. And so sometimes I feel
That's
a
my
little
books too. My books are clean, or I hate the word clean, but like closed
yeah,
door. Closed door.
I like the slow burn romance type.
Both of mine are slow burn too. I
Yeah.
get it.
I was talking to my husband about it and I was like, I do feel a little, I don't know, like an odd person like in the book world because I don't write it. But a lot of my friends do. Do you get what I'm saying? There's a lot of like my author friends who do. And wow, it's just lonely for sure.
Well, I think the way book sales are going, it seems like and I think this is I truly do feel like it might be a misconception based on like our algorithms. I think it might feel like to us that everyone is consuming smut,
Yeah.
right? Like I feel like because of the algorithms, like the algorithms are pushing those like romance smutty books, right? But that doesn't mean that's what everyone is reading. I read them occasionally, absolutely, but they're not all that I read. I'm currently listening to a book on audio that's called Foundry Side, and it's super plot driven. There's no like sort of sex or even romance involved in it. It's an
Wow.
adventure fantasy. And that's what I'm enjoying right now. Do I like smut once in a while? Absolutely. But is it
Sure.
all I read? No. And so I feel like it might be this misconception that everyone's like consuming smut. But
Yeah.
there are people, readers, who don't want smut. There are readers who only like it sometimes.
Yeah.
They have to be in the mood for it. And that's me. I'm a mood reader. There's some times where I enjoy a good smut book here and there. And there's other times where I want something with a little bit more
But
depth, I
yeah.
guess you could
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's I'm currently writing like a erotic book, like an erotica book, right? But everything else to this point has not been. Like I'm dabbling in it. I'm giving it a try just to see how I feel about it, if I have fun doing it, all that different stuff. So I just feel like it might be a misconception that that's all people are consuming because I don't think so. Like I don't think so.
It's
I actually did some research that like book sales are up because of book talk,
That's amazing.
but specifically adult fiction. And not just adult fiction romance, but like adult fiction, all categories.
Oh, wow. That's awesome, though.
So I feel, and that's in the last 3 years, the book sales
Wow.
have tripled because of book talk. I feel like the algorithm likes that romantasy, smutty
Yeah.
stuff.
The romantasy. Like I read Fourth Ring, I did Iron Flame, and that has like smut in it. And it was a great book. I enjoyed it. I just literally pre-ordered the Onyx
The
one.
third one. The
Yeah,
third one, yeah.
super
I haven't
excited.
read it yet.
I
I've been on the fence. I've
it's
been super
really
on the fence about it.
it's good. It really is. I think I can't say anything because my writing skills are, I'm still learning. There are some things that could have been obviously thrown out, but honestly, I just read The Fate of Elysian again and I said, "Oh goodness, how did I even publish this?" So I really can't say anything, but it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I'm super excited for the third one. Fourth Wing is actually the first book that I have read since middle school. I have not
Wow.
read in a very long time. I just love to read or not read. I love to write. And that's why I'm trying to get back into reading because I really do. I really did enjoy that one. So I'm sure there's tons of other books that are even better than.
There's lots of stuff out there. And I know for me that I definitely cycle in and out of when I can't read. There, like, for example, I've been trying to read this one book since like March, and I keep coming back to it because I do like the book, but like my attention, like my ADHD just won't let me focus. That's why most of the time I listen to audiobooks. So
The
when I'm
audiobook. Yep.
exercising or doing the dishes or cooking or that, I listen to the audiobook instead of putting on music. And so I like switch between the 2,
It
music
felt
and audiobooks. And that not to say that helps a whole lot. I've only read 4 books this year, but it does help me read
yeah.
books because if I am actively writing and I am actively writing all of the time, it's very hard for me to read. So I read of those 4 books that I've read this year, and we're in July, by the way,
Yeah.
right? Of those 4 books, I read one of those books actually on Kindle. So it held my attention, but it was very short. It was very sweet. It was super sweaty. So it's like it wasn't like super hard to digest, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And it was right after I finished my second book. So it was like I had this like break. It was like I needed like to take a week or 2 off before I dived into the next project.
Yeah.
But I'm like you, I can't read
The,
if I'm writing.
no. It distracts me because I feel like I'm reading and then I'm just thinking of ideas for my book and then I'll read a page and I'm like, what did I just read? I'm gonna
I will literally, like, if I see a phrase or hear a phrase in an audiobook or see a phrase in a book that I'm reading or listening to, I will literally and put it in my notes. I have a note in my phone that's called like language, and
yeah.
it's just like little phrases, like
Yeah.
little metaphors. I was like, oh, that was really pretty. I like that. And I will just like, and it's not that like I hijack them completely or anything, but it's just I like the use of language. And so I go back to it to remind me of the way that like language can be used when I am
For
writing.
that. I'll have to Google things too. I'm like, what's another word to say he gazed at me? Like, I'm trying
I do
to,
that too. I
how
do that too.
can I say she walked on rocks? So I'm trying to like use other verbiage instead of me just like using the same old things all the time.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
I listened to Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, so I guess I can't say I read it. But I
But you read it, you read it. I don't care what
well,
anyone says, you read it.
but I was the same way, like, I would listen to it, and some of was like, how, I don't know, his lips curled or something like that, where there was things where I was like, "Oh, I haven't really thought about using that."
Mhm.
I don't know how many times I used the word giggle in my book. If
You
I
know what?
giggle again, I'm gonna, like, vomit, like, I'm
So
re-edit it's awful.
2 resources for you. So one's to buy, and if you don't wanna buy it, then you know
Okay,
what, because I get it, your husband's getting out of the military and all that. I have a free one too, but I just wanna mention them.
okay,
First, the emotion thesaurus. That's the one, the buy one, right? The emotion thesaurus. It's on Amazon. It's great. The emotion thesaurus. I've got it. It's up on my shelf back there.
okay.
Super great. But free resource, so you can literally pull it up in another tab while you're writing. I don't remember the exact name of it. I have a bookmark, but my point is what I will do is when we get off of this, I will send you over the link to it. And it is essentially where it's like a website that has like, is your character feeling, it has categories of emotions. And you'll go and click on those emotions and it will give you like these different ways to express these
Shut up,
emotions.
or that's amazing.
And I super utilize it all the time because I do find myself getting repetitive, but it's a free one. So it's like the website that I'm going to send you after this, and I'll link it in the show notes too because I'm sure people are going to be interested in
Yeah.
it. I'll link it in the show notes too because I don't remember what it's called. I just have it bookmarked on my computer, but it has different categories. It's not as in depth
Okay,
as the emotion thesaurus on Amazon,
okay.
but for quick reference, if you're just looking for a little bit of variety, it works great. I will definitely send it over to you.
Sounds amazing to me. That would be
But I
great.
use it all the time
So that would
because 'cause I'm
help.
like you. I get stuck in patterns of using the same
Yes.
words over and over again, same
Yeah.
turns of phrases.
I know my developmental editors, "You've already used this. You've already used this." I'm like, "I'm sorry." I don't mean to. It just is happening.
Yeah, I think we all get stuck in those patterns, so I wouldn't stress it. Definitely wouldn't stress it. Alright, so we've been talking for a while.
Yes. So
I'm gonna try to wrap it up as
okay.
best as we can.
Okay.
So let's look forward. So
Okay.
what are like, let's for Reese 5 years from now, where do you wanna be?
Ooh, I just wanna be in Barnes& and Noble. I just wanna have a physical copy in Barnes& and Noble, like, on maybe, like, the new bestsellers or something. That would be, like,
Same
I
girl.
probably would sob, like, the
I
tape.
would too.
'Cause, yeah, I mean, and it sounds so lame, but, like, I'll just walk Barnes& and Noble and just imagine, like, seeing my name,
Same.
like, just seeing it. I think it would just make it feel like all this hard work has led to
Been
something,
worth it.
and, like,
Yeah.
especially with, like, my husband, like, he is such a good guy, like, he will work 2 jobs for me to do this. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's just how he is, and I think it would just be so nice for me to be like, "Look, only did I do this, but you did this. Like, you
Mhm.
helped me be able to
To
write,
do this.
to do this." Yeah. So
Yeah, he supported you along the way.
and my son, like, Willow, she's, I think, just too young right now, but my son will grab my books and he'll just, like, look at my book. Obviously, he won't read them, but he'll just look at them and he'll talk to me about them. Like, "Mom, how many words is in this one? And how many pages is in this one?" And he's always, "You wrote this? Like, you did this?" He's just so, I don't know. They're just my little, I want them to
Such
me to succeed so they know that no matter what, that they can do it.
You are being such a good role model,
I
just
love
so you know.
them.
Such a good role model.
I just want them to have things that I didn't have, so
I think all mothers want that, so I get that. Definitely get that. So, speaking of that, in a similar vein,
mhm.
people who are in a similar boat to you, perhaps mothers or who have ADHD, who are writers or creatives in general, who are just dealing with the same circumstances where they're juggling all these different things. Would you have any sort of like words of wisdom for them or advice about the creative journey, about keeping their head up or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard and times can get hard and it's hard with the kids, but
It is
when you print out the book, I swear it's like all of that.
magic.
It is so magic. Like, it's all that pain, all those tears, all those nights where you stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, just even if it's not perfect, like, even if there's still a grammar error in it or whatever, like, having that book in your hand, like, you did it. Like, I wrote that, like, all of those words, all those chapters, this story, came from my mind, and I think that's, like, the coolest thing, like,
It is.
so, I don't know.
It is. No, I absolutely agree with you. It's an irreplaceable
Yeah,
feeling.
like,
Irreplaceable.
came from your mind. It didn't come from AI, it didn't come from somebody else.
No, it's a bit like birth. Like
Yeah,
you made this
yeah,
thing. This
that's
thing
me.
is in the world because of you, because you exist.
Yeah, crazy.
It is super crazy. I agree. And again, a little bit like magic. Where can listeners find you?
Oh, yeah, so they can find me on TikTok. It's just author Reese Sherron. A lot of people want to spell the last name weird, so it's Sheron. And then you can find me on Instagram. I have two different Instagrams right now, but they're you can just type in Reese Sherron and both will find you'll find me. And then my links are just in the link tree. So hopefully in November all my books will be out again. That's my goal.
I will link to all of them in the show notes for our listeners, for anyone who wants to catch up with you. And then just one last question before we go. What is something like, so obviously you have readers because you've written
Yeah.
already like several books.
Yeah.
So people know you. Like there are people out there who know you, readers who know you. What is something, even those readers
Mhm.
or someone new stumbling upon you wouldn't know about you?
Who that wouldn't know about me?
Wouldn't know about you.
Oh man.
Just something unique or weird or I don't know.
It's
It
something weird. It's I
it doesn't have to be weird. I'm just saying it could be. It's an option.
weird. So a lot of people don't know I'm an only child, which
Okay,
I
that's a good one.
think is where I get that I'm a community driven type person where I like people. And it's weird because usually normally single kids like don't want to be around like people, but like I'm that type of person where I like to just absorb everybody. I just want to have everybody. And then
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that
I
about you.
I'm trying to convince my husband into adopting a kid because I want a third baby. But hopefully one day, hopefully he might think I'm crazy. But I think
I
just
don't.
being the only child, I don't know. More the better, right? More the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. You want everything you didn't have. You said that earlier, and I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. You want your kids to have a little tight-knit family, which is growing up, it was just you. Like you didn't have that experience of having siblings. And so you want to give that to them. And that's special. That's very special. So yeah,
Lone.
thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Reese. I do
Oh,
appreciate it. Also want to greatly thank you for taking time out of your day to be here to talk to me. It's been so pleasant to have you. I've had such a good time.
I enjoyed
So
it.
thank you. Good, good, good. I'm glad. So everyone listening, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.